Conservative 3 weeks ago said, here's PPE, let's stop the visitors. Yes, we agree with you. And, Tony Holohan had the best medical advice that Leo Varadkar seemingly gave at the time was to allow things to carry on as they were. If we had stepped in sooner, 3 weeks ago, do you think we would be looking at the 365, roughly, lives that have been lost in care homes?
I certainly wouldn't be given the answer that he gave last night, would it have made any difference. But I'll say this much to you, and he is the man, and Mr. Holohan and Mr. Harris, that regularly state, and while I'm quoting them people, they regularly state, lives have been saved by the restrictions and by the reaction of Joe Public to those restrictions and complying with them. So if they're saying that on one hand, how could they not say that about the same restrictions on the same level and all of the levels of attention and prevention and providing PPE to nursing homes couldn't come out with the same results?
I mean, in fairness, by his own admission, he did say, in 6 months' time or a year's time, we will look back at this and say, yes, some mistakes were made, things that we could have done, could have been done, things that we did do probably shouldn't have been done. So, and I accept that, because this is something that's unprecedented, uncharted. We've never been in this position before, although we kind of have in some sense when we have a bad flu season, when we had MRSA in the hospitals, when we had vomiting bugs in hospitals where we would restrict access to visitors. So in some sense, we've kind of a bit of practice, dealing with problems in care homes or hospitals. So the reaction seems to be being very slow, considering, as you rightly said, by his own admission, by Tony Holohan's own admission, by the scientists' and doctors' own admission, the people in care homes are the most vulnerable.
Yeah, and, the exercise is about having as little amount of numbers getting the COVID in the first place, having as little amount of deaths also. So you can't pick and choose where it's acceptable for deaths to be allowed to happen. So if you're given a service in terms of prevention and for saving lives, it has to be across the piece, just the same as the health sector. What should be done now? The HSE should be taking over all of these organisations and running them with one public health service, one for everybody, and not two or three tier. But if you look at last week in the CHO area, Midlands, Meath, Louth, for instance, when those nursing homes got a communication saying that PPE was going to be provided to them at that point, 5 weeks into it, Niall, what they were told was, you get it on the basis of how badly hit you are already with COVID.
And I know there was one there last week where there was 9 people had died in one day in one particular care home, which was, it must have been horrible for all the people, obviously, who have people in that care home.
Yeah, but there's another aspect to it. For people that die with the COVID that was in a nursing home, lots of them have been removed to a hospital and die in the hospital. And I don't know whether that death is recorded then as a hospital death or a nursing home death, and they could have been in the nursing home for a number of years before that or a number of months. But
are they getting, Willy, he mentioned last night that problem has now been addressed. Are they getting, from your experience and from the people you've spoken to and the people that you represent, are they now getting the PPE?
No,
and they're not.
They're getting it in small portions.
So they still don't have enough, is what you're saying to me?
Oh, absolutely not. But see, when you say enough, the reality is every worker in those nursing homes should be kitted out with PPE. Like, we have examples of for instance, people, care workers, calling to some older person in the community, for example, no PPE. The doctor and the nurse there possibly at the same time as the care worker, both kitted out fully in PPE. Now, that is putting the service, the patient at a risk, and it's putting the worker at a risk. And when the worker shows symptoms, that worker's out of action, missing.
Yep.
And in hospitals, for instance, where people on wards in the categories we would represent being told, no, you don't need PPE going into that ward. But while they're in it, doctors, nurses there, fully kitted.
But isn't there also a problem too, and leaving aside people's homes, and I absolutely appreciate the point that you're making, it's a risk to not only the person, but a risk to the carer themselves. Many of those carers, by the way, would be elderly themselves. But I watched a clip on Sky News the other night, and it was either Ellie Goulding or some famous singer, was singing for people in care homes, and she was outside the window of the care home with a microphone and a speaker, and she was singing, and they were all sitting around on sofas, looking through the window, and all smiling and clapping and everything. And the point that Leo made last night is that we're telling people, obviously to stay in their front room. a care home, as he said rightly, and that's the only thing I will give him credit for, is essentially a front room. That when people have dementia, or they're suffering from some sort of illness, or they're elderly, they tend to rely on the fact that they have others to talk to and they're with other like-minded people. And it's very difficult to turn around to somebody at 88 years of age, and be it male or female, and with dementia, and say, we're going to put you in a room on your own, away from the people, the only people that you know for the last years of your life. So it's very difficult to control that situation, isn't it?
Well, I'll pose a different angle to that. Supposing you're one of those aged persons, or they're a relative or whatever, they're taken out of the home suffering from COVID, to go to the hospital and they recover from COVID. And they're then told they're going back to the home where they got it, and where since they have left to go to the hospital, where 7 to 8 to 10 people have died. Now, how would that family or that person want to face back to that home? So there's a huge amount, but if I could go back a bit from the beginning, and because of what I work on and the rest of my colleagues at the other trade unions, your eye is on the ball on this thing 24/7. That's the way it is. Now, but if you look at the Italian match with Ireland that was cancelled, and all of the Italians that was allowed in here, if you look at all of the people that was allowed to go out to Cheltenham and come back in here without any restrictions, without any testing. Now, to me, that beggared belief at the time, and I said it at the time. But I'm harbouring on about this nursing home thing since day one, since the government announced they were going to take over the private hospitals. And that was back, I think, the 27th of March, 31st of March, in around the end of March. But no order taken over the private nursing homes. And the unions raised that immediately. But yet we're in now to the 22nd of April, when some bits and pieces are being done for the nursing homes, like some PPE. So you look at yourself working in a nursing home. I can get it and you can't. You're working in a different nursing home than me, but you didn't get it because your nursing home didn't have as many cases as the one I'm working in. Such discrimination against workers. And these.
In other words, waiting till the horse is bolted before you do anything. Yeah, I get you. And to be clear, Willie, no matter what we do, I mean, and no matter what restrictions we put in place, and no matter how much PPE we get, we are always going to have a situation where, if we look at per head of population, more people are going to die in nursing homes because of the age group. And we accept that. We do, well, when I say we accept, it's hard to accept that people will die, but we do accept that people do die. So we are always going to have that difference in the community and in the care homes, where more people are going to die in care homes because of the very fact that they're aged, or they have a lot of underlying conditions, or they may be at that point in their life anyway. So I think it's fair to say that as well. But the point that you're making clearly, just finally on this, is that you believe that the government dropped the ball. We should have been in there sooner. We should have done a lot more, and we could have saved some lives and gave those people an extra few years in their life.
Well, I feel that any family that has lost someone in a nursing home because of COVID, and that nursing home, that the care and attention and the preventions and everything else that should have been made available to the full was not made available. I think those people will take it to the grave with them, that the government of this country at the time of COVID and the health service let them and their families down, and that's what has caused them.
One final point, Willie, and I'm getting a lot of people texting in. I'm going to talk to Padraig in a few minutes, whose mother's in a nursing home, and they're worried about her, right? And a lot of people are saying, can I take my mum or dad, provided, of course, for health reasons, they can take them out if they have dementia, for example, and they don't need 24-hour care. Can I take them home and look after them myself until all this is over? And they're talking about, they're worried about the Fair Deal scheme and how that's going to work out. What advice would you give to somebody who could take their mother or father out of a care home at the moment?
Well, if it was a nursing home where, lucky enough, there was no COVID in it at this point in time, probably those families wouldn't be as anxious to be doing that. But I do know of families that has done that, and I think those families will keep their person at home for as long as they can after this is over, before they would return that aged person, a mammy or a daddy or a granny or grandma, whatever it may be, back to any home. That's my feeling on it. It is very,
well,
very
but Padraig is going to go on in a second, and I suppose the question he wants to ask is, will there be a place for them when they want to put them back in again under the Fair Deal scheme?
Well, our position, coming from the union point of view, is that there needs to be a health service, a public health service for everybody, and that we feel for out of this if we get a better health service for everybody and for all people in nursing homes, that is a different place, it's a place with better prevention, better protection, better service in all ways. If that can be achieved out of it, well then all won't be lost.
Listen, thank you very much indeed, Willy Quigley, who from the United Trade Union and the Regional Officer of Nursing Homes. Thanks very much indeed for coming on the air today. Clearly saying that the government have dropped the ball. Padraig, you're on Classic Hits. How you doing, Padraig?
Okay, Niall.
Sorry for holding. I know you were waiting there a long time. Now, I know your mum is in a nursing home.
My mum's in a nursing home for the last, it's 9-10 years now.
And how is she, health-wise, by the way?
I don't know, she needs care, she needs 24-hour.
How old is she?
She's 93, 94 coming up.
It's a great age, isn't it?
But,
I wouldn't mind getting that age myself.
Well, once you're in good shape now.
Once you're in good shape, that's it. You have a good diet. Yeah, so she's in good shape, generally speaking. Yeah. She's 93 years of age and could have many more years left in her life, as we've seen from other people who live to over 100. But Padraig, and obviously you want the best for her, as everybody wants for their parents. And the care home that she's in currently, or the nursing home she's in at the moment, has there been any cases or deaths of COVID-19?
Not that we've been told.
Right, okay.
I'm at the stage that I don't really trust what I'm being told.
Right, okay.
Sometimes, But we take it that it's not. It's not there. But at the same time, no disrespect to the nursing home, they're doing a great job. I saw one of the carers yesterday evening through the window. I was trying to speak to my mother on the phone, which wasn't working too well. But she was translating for me, and she pulled down her mask. It was the first time I saw them with any form of protection, but she pulled down her mask to translate what I was saying.
Okay.
So there's a bit of training that all nursing homes they have to go through for this as well.
Yes, of course.
I don't think they're understanding it.
Right, okay.
How easy it is
to pass it on. So, but I suppose in that case, what was the alternative for her to pull down? Because she wouldn't be able to, obviously, you wouldn't be able to understand her if she had a mask on, and she was obviously trying to help you by translating.
Of course, all understood. But look, ultimately I'd love to be able to take her out, bring her home, but I have to go back to work at one stage.
But Padraig, you'd have to isolate her as well.
Yeah, sure.
And isolate yourself.
Well, that's what look, when you do anything.
Well, no, you would. I'm not saying you wouldn't, but I mean, that's the point. You wouldn't be able to go back to work. You'd have to isolate yourself. And in relation to, those who are most vulnerable and those who have to cocoon, as they say at the moment, that's not going to change on May the 5th. And that's not going to change in July the 5th or August the 5th, most likely. So you could be in a situation where you and your mum could have to be isolated that could be an indefinite period of time. Because scientists are saying this might be with us for decades.
Well, this is it, and that could be the case. Or, look on the other side, if you leave my mother where she is, or anybody does the same, you leave your person in the nursing home. How are you going to get to visit? What way is the visiting going to, come back?
Yeah, no, I know,
normal?
And it's very difficult to comprehend that the last years of somebody's life, that you're not going to be able to hold their hand or be there for them. And that's a really difficult thing to comprehend. We've never had to do that before. And we've had other viruses, by the way, in society before, but we've never had to do this before.
Yeah, that's the killer, that is the killer. But look, the Irish Hospice Foundation put in a request there for someone to be there. And I really hope that somebody pushes for this and gets that through. Now, I think our nursing home might have some sort of a situation like that.
But would it be, I'm just wondering, with your mum at 93 years of age, and let's say they decide, okay, you can have one visitor, but they have to be, geared up in PPE and masks and all sorts of things. Do you think that would be more dehumanising or frightening for your mother to see you arriving in the door, dressed from head to toe in PPE? She would be used to seeing nurses like that, all right, possibly. Yeah. I mean, is that really the way you want to spend your last moments with your mum?
No, but isn't it better than nothing?
Well,
and even if I had to pay for the PPE myself, I would.
Yeah. Okay, so you just want them to allow a visitor in, one visitor, the same visitor, obviously not different ones each week, obviously, but the same person, so which would be you in this case.
Yeah, well, we're a big family, and I'd definitely be looking at it, hoping it could be me, but someone, because of God.
But you heard Willy there a few minutes ago saying that, if the government had have stopped visitors at an early stage, which they didn't, we might not be in the situation we're in today, where, half the people who have died, over half the people who have died in this country were in care homes.
Well, that's true too, because the close down our particular one on the weekend. So then I was saying, right, okay, it's a bit late. I thought it was going to happen beforehand. I was waiting for it to happen. But anyway, what did they do? On Monday, they opened up for the week for an hour and a half to go in, and it could be any person, one at a time, but any person.
To go in and spread the virus.
To go in and spread the virus. Honest God, it could be five different days of the week, But anyway,
but see, the point is, Patrick,
I saw another visitor in there at the time, and what did she do? She went around talking to other people like she normally would. She's a good girl. She's a nice girl. She's a friendly girl. But she went around talking to the other residents. I said, "Oh my God, keep this woman out."
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Does your mum interact with other residents, by the way? Is she with other residents? Or is she just in a room on her own?
No, they're left in a day room beside each other in close proximity. And there'll be close proximity...
But what do you want to do? Well, with the greatest respect, Patrick, okay? Your mother has had a wonderful life. 93 years of age. She has seen more than you and I will ever see, probably, right? COVID-19 is nothing to her. Okay, would you like to see your mother in the last years of her life, and I hate to be very grim about it, and I apologise, by the way, if you think I'm being grim, but would you like to see your mother in the last years of her life not having that contact with friends and people who are like-minded in a nursing home?
Look, she has. They have to have. They can't. She's a giver all her life. She was such a giver and a people person, and she would be available.
It would break her heart if you were to put her in a room on her own.
Yeah, she needs people.
Well, absolutely. So you saying, in some sense, you want to bring her home, or you'd have to isolate with her, right? Or some people are suggesting they should be isolated in the care homes. I think that's the most ridiculous idea ever. Because why would you do that to an elderly person?
Yeah, well, look, the way it's going on is that if there's no vaccine or whatever, and it doesn't look like anything...
Well, not in the immediate future, yeah.
So look, it's going to get in there at some stage.
Well, even if there is a vaccine, I don't know whether they can give a vaccine or whether they would give a vaccine to somebody who would be not the healthiest person in the world, but 93 years of age. That might be dangerous. We don't know what sort of vaccines will be available when there's different types of vaccines for more vulnerable people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, when you're looking into the future, and there's no answers. You have no choice when to sort of expect. Well,
I think we have to be logical. But Patrick, we have to be logical. And I understand you're her son, and I understand the love that you have for your mother. But I think a logic has to come into it. We're in a situation where there's a pandemic. We're in a situation where, unfortunately, people like your mum are in a very vulnerable situation because they're close to end of life. All right, we accept that, okay?
Of course.
But we want that end of life to be the best quality ever. We want them to enjoy the last years of their lives. And the last thing I want to hear about is some poor person being locked in a room on their own, only seeing a nurse every now and again with a big mask on her. I don't think that's a nice end of life for anybody.
That's the scary part. That's the horrible. That's the most.
I'm not saying a free for all, but what I'm saying is let them be with their friends in the care home. You know what I mean? And let's try and our best, as Willy said, to protect those care homes from the virus getting in. That's all we can really do, isn't it?
Yeah, well, of course, 100%. And fair play to Willy and everybody that's doing their job. It's fantastic. But there's training, like that girl, and God love her, I love her, the one that
lifted out the mask for the phone, yeah.
Yeah, she's brilliant. She's one of the best in there.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. There's no answer, mate. Really.
The problem is, Patrick, there's no perfection. And we are human beings. I like on numerous occasions when you see people that you haven't seen in a while, you go to shake their hand and you kind of go, oh, jeez, I better not do that. So everybody is in the same boat. And unfortunately, your mum and many people in care homes are in a very vulnerable situation. Thankfully, most of us are not in that same vulnerable situation, but certainly the elderly are. Listen, Patrick, thank you for your call. And I really, really hope that your mum does well and lives another good few years, a long life. I'd like to get to 93 and be healthy at it as well. Keep texting, keep WhatsApping. The number's 087 188 0008. I got a message from a mother here, or from a person who wants to take their mother out of a care home, and I'll read the message after the break. But what advice would you give to